Hey everyone, it's time again to recap the latest news from the solar PV industry, compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the wonderful world of solar for the week of January 26th. Now, the U.S. added a record-breaking 9.3 gigawatts of new solar module manufacturing capacity in the third quarter of 2024. Total U.S. solar manufacturing capacity is now over 40 gigawatts, and much of this has been spurred on by the domestic production requirements and incentives that were built into the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in 2022. The recent report from CEA, the Solar Energy Industries Association, does now say that the U.S. in theory has enough capacity to domestically produce all of the solar panels that there is a demand for within the U.S. But theory and reality often collide. The federal government has a requirement that was in place from the Build America, Buy America Act that was passed in 2021 to encourage domestic production by requiring that they use domestic product on all solar projects that were built by the federal government. But earlier this year, the government found that it simply cannot purchase enough domestically manufactured solar products to meet that demand. So they asked for a one-year hiatus against having to meet this requirement. In their filing, they said that even though we have enough capacity in theory, that production is actually much less. Now, this is due to foreign competition, shortage of workers, and also outdated or production facilities. They say that actually the production capacity is only about 25% of what the theoretical capacity is. For example, in 2023, the U.S. only produced 3.7 gigawatts of domestically manufactured panels, even though we had a nameplate capacity of over 15 gigawatts. Q-Cells recently reported that they set a new world record for efficiency on solar panels, 28.6% for tandem solar panels. These are panels that incorporate a layer of perovskite on top of a layer of silicon, and by using these two layers, they can more efficiently absorb energy hitting the various layers. Their top layer absorbs the high energy. The bottom layer is better at absorbing the lower energy cells. Now, they announced that these cells will be available to the marketplace, but they have not said when. Now, in September of last year, 2024, UK-based Oxford PV began selling the first commercially available perovskite and silicon solar panel, and it has an efficiency of about 24.5%. Now, this compares with typical silicon panels that in 2024 had an average efficiency of right at around 21%. President Trump's first executive actions will have a significant impact on the renewable energy industry, but specifically for the wind industry and the adoption of electric vehicles. In fact, to date, his actions have not really had much of an effect, or do not appear to have much of an effect, on the solar industry. But it's too early to breathe a sigh of relief. For example, one of his actions declared that there is a energy state of emergency, but he excluded solar from the definition of what energy is or energy resources, and so it will not get expedited permitting as part of that action. And also on Monday, Trump halted the disbursement of all funds from the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, as well as the Infrastructure Act. It's unclear whether any of this applies to funds that have already been allocated, but those funds that have not been allocated have to get approval from the director of the National Economic Council as well as the director of the Office of Management and Budget. They have to sign off on these monies, and it could have a significant impact on projects that are in the pipeline but have not already been allocated their funding. Now, critics of these actions have pointed to the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. Basically, it prevents U.S. presidents from blocking spending for funds that are already appropriated by Congress. But President Trump has promised to repeal this law and give the power to his executive branch. But he would need Congress to go ahead and pass this. And that might not be as easy as perhaps he thinks, because most of these projects that the funds have not been allocated for are located in districts that are represented by Republican congressmen, and they currently have a very small majority within the House. So we'll have to watch, see how that goes. Fire at a power plant and battery facility operated by Vistra Energy in Monterey County community of Moss Landing began last Thursday afternoon, forcing the evacuations and the closure of Coastal Highway 1. A Monterey County official on Friday called it the largest fire ever of its kind. The Moss Landing plant is located about 95 miles south of San Francisco. The battery energy storage industry, known by the acronym of BESS, B-E-S-S, develops systems to store energy from the grid as well as from solar and wind energy producing facilities. The massive fire is one of the world's largest lithium battery storage plants, has raised a lot of worries about the possible long-term health effects of such a fire, and has brought scrutiny on this emerging industry about their safety practices. In fact, the Monterey County Supervisor, Glenn Church, called this incident a 3-mile island event for the industry, referencing the 1979 partial meltdown at the Pennsylvania nuclear plant. He went on to state that the event was in fact a worst case scenario for that particular facility. He also added that it's the 4th fire at that site since 2019, and that he and other county officials had been assured by operators that it would never happen again. The cause of the fire has not yet been determined. According to the American Clean Energy Association, fire-related incidents at BESS sites are incredibly rare, with only 20 incidents in the last 10 years in U.S. operating facilities, even as storage deployment during that time period has grown about 25,000%. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.